Welcome to the Feminist Exec, the podcast where women in leadership share their stories, challenges, and triumphs. I'm your host, KP, and together we'll dive into the real talk behind breaking barriers, leading with impact, and redefining success on our own terms. Get ready to be inspired, empowered, and equipped to take your leadership to the next level. This is the Feminist Exec. Let's forge your future. Welcome to the Feminist Exec podcast. I am super excited today to be sitting with a dear friend and also someone I've worked with pretty extensively, Bern Datka. Bern has tons of experience with companies like Delta and Disney and has lots of stories to tell. So welcome, Bern.
Thanks for having me.
Why don't you start with a little bit of an introduction about yourself and what your career history is?
Well, pretty crazy. It's extensive. I started out in the corporate world with Disney about 28 years ago. And then I thought I might try corporate contracting after I was laid off in 2009 from Disney. So I became everybody's hostage, but in a really kind of fun, good way. So I have been with Delta Airlines. I've been with Cox Automotive. I've been with LexisNexis. I've been with Boston Scientific. I'm about to go to Deloitte for a pretty extensive contract coming up at the end of this month. So I kind of like keep a foot in corporate, but then I've done some private stuff, and then I've done some supply chain stuff because you kind of wrangled me into that world. So I feel like I play in all the sandboxes and I enjoy them all. So like medical, tech, aviation, all the things. I try to be diverse. I mostly stick to events and marketing and trade shows. Kind of seems to be my favorite wheelhouse. Production, podcasting, tech stuff. So it's been an interesting career.
What do you think led you to this? Because I know like we've worked together on a lot of events and things like that. And I like to call you like my magician in the back pocket. Like you read my mind and then make something happen before I even ask you for it. But what do you think kind of led you to the career that you're in today?
Good question. I think I had started in like scenic fabrication and design while I was at Disney, and I really kind of liked the back end of things. And I think that kind of led me while I was in my undergrad to kind of think about exploring more of like the production side of things, trade shows, events, stuff like that. I think I probably, though, got into the event creative space because of my dad. He was an opera singer and he was pretty famous and he did a lot of Broadway stuff. And so I think just kind of like growing up around the performing stuff kind of made me interested in it. But I was like, I don't want to be a performer. I would be much better behind the scenes. So I think that kind of all led to kind of where I am now, which is cool.
That's awesome. Anything that we would know that your dad's in from a performance perspective?
My dad was he was in Phantom of the Opera for 8.5 years in San Francisco and in New York. He was in Les Mis on Broadway. I think Les Mis was like the first thing he ever did. And then he was with the San Francisco Opera Chorus for, pretty much his whole career. And gosh, like he did so much stuff. I think he would have loved to have been in Wicked, though. Like that were an option. He loves Wicked. He's like, why did I do Wicked when I was, and now like everything is all about Wicked. So it's pretty funny.
That's amazing. I know you have some really cool stories about being connected to the craziest people and celebrities probably because of that. So that's kind of a cool angle, right?
Right. I like to meet famous people just to see what they're like. What do they look like? Like I met Tom Cruise once. He came actually backstage to do a tour with my dad and Nicole Kidman. And she's like very tall. She's beautiful. She's like 6'2", tall, thin, gorgeous. And he's very small. And I was like, he's so small. And my dad was like, shut your mouth. You can't say that. And he's very small. He's like 5'2".
You had exposure to like very famous people early on, which is probably why you do so well now, right?
Right. They don't scare me.
What do you think has been a pivotal moment or moments in your career path that's kind of shaped your journey so far?
Being flexible and just learning to pivot as it's been needed, because like the industry is always changing for events and marketing and advertising and trade shows, and then demand, and then stuff with COVID or random catastrophic events. So I think it's just being like flexible and okay with that, and not being like too married to something because things are like always changing.
Yeah. You can't have a career like yours without having some extreme level of flexibility, right?
Right.
Going from, as you mentioned, COVID, kind of like,
Right.
complete standstill, right?
Right. Total standstill. Everything changed drastically. And I'm sure it will again. I'm sure there'll be more everything. It's just part of life. I think it's just being like prepared for it. And I think it was good though. I mean, it kind of forced us into podcasting, live streaming. Like we didn't really do much of that, I think, in the States. So, I mean, that was pretty cool. That kind of like got the urge out there to try new technology and, try to host an event from one part of the world and stream it to another and see if it would work. It's been fun.
That's quite a challenge. It makes me wonder, what other challenges have you had kind of in your career and how did you overcome them?
I think the biggest one for me, especially, I started at Disney when I was 17. So the biggest thing that happened for me was ageism. Not so much being a woman. That actually, Disney has a really great environment to harbor and foster women in leadership and business, which is really fantastic. And I don't think I knew much about that when I started there at 17. But ageism, being so young as a vice president there, I was really weird because I had so many people I worked with and people that were on my team who were twice my age. And like, so having to navigate being like a very young leader, I think was really hard. But I think it's really helped me shape a good perspective of how to handle a lot of different crayons in the box, colors of the rainbow of people, and just try to level set with them. But yeah, the ageism stuff is really hard, I think, as a woman in business.
Why do you think it's more pronounced for women?
I think so.
Than it is for men? Why do you think
so?
that?
I think maybe because of like this whole nature versus nurture theory and like, can a woman be a good leader? Because I think women are mostly labeled to be more in the nurturing and more emotional, and like, can they actually step up to the plate when things are hard and be more firm and aggressive? So I feel that's why women have mostly been overlooked, especially in my industry. I like that now more women are coming out as producers and directors, but it's mostly been very male dominated. I'd say very similar to the supply chain industry, like your space. Like, it's very hard to climb that ladder and get out there as a woman. But now it feels like it's getting a little bit easier. People are more open to it. I don't know. Maybe this new generation, this younger generation's helping. It's predominantly women, so maybe that's also helping.
It is interesting. There's so much to unpack there. There's so much to unpack because I think, like, I was just finishing a book about how women in politics and leadership are perceived in comparison to their male colleagues. And like the expectation, like you said, nature versus nurture. Like, we're expected to be the mothers, like the den moms and the parents, and we're we're supposed to be calm and welcoming, and if we're assertive, we're considered to be bossy or
inappropriate,
bitchy or something. Like,
exactly. Yeah.
And the younger generation coming in, I think, needs to see some representation of women in these roles. Why do you think it's changing, just because of generational, or what do you think is the main change that's allowing more women to be in those spots of leadership in your industries?
It's generational. I think it's movies like Barbie that are helping, where you have predominantly women that were working on it, producing it, writing it. I think it's maybe like, especially like movies and pictures and film, especially thinking of Barbie, like just willing to take a chance on an all-female crew and be like, okay, yes, let's do this. And it worked out so great for them. I mean, they're now making Barbie too. So they did something right. But yeah, I don't know. I think it's tough. It's tough. It's just really, I think we're getting there, but we're still very behind, especially in the United States. I think we're not where we could be, next to like the Netherlands and Europe, and like where they're pushing like sustainability and women and all the things, like technology. Like we're getting there. slowly.
Yeah. How do you think, because I know we live in a very dynamic and everything's fluid in this world and environment now, how do you think the deprioritization of DEI initiatives are going to impact women and girls in film and production and event spaces? Do you think that's going to have an impact?
What kind of impact it's going to have? Assume it will have an impact. Really understand why I just feel like there are so many other things we could be focusing on, specifically in the US right now, that is one where like, okay, take it off the table. Like, it's such a tough one, you know? Like, I don't know. I mean, that's just so hard because the DEI programs, especially the ones at Disney and within corporate America that I'm familiar with, they're really for everyone. And to take them away is hard. But I don't know how this kind of falls into it. But like, for example, when you apply for a job, for an application for a job, I think now they ask some questions they shouldn't be asking that fall into some of the DEI stuff. Like, I don't think you should have to share maybe your sexual preference is a little weird. And how are we like targeting people by like putting down their sexual preference or that they identify as a purple crayon? Like, I think it needs to all be reevaluated somehow, but I don't know how. But I mean, inclusivity is very important just in the world in general. So how could we make everything more inclusive for everyone, and every workplace is where I think maybe the focus should be. That's where I might try to put it if I were in charge in that world.
I mean, you said something interesting, which is DEI is for everyone. It's one of those like misconceptions that,
right,
you know, that to be a feminist, you have to be a woman, right? And feminist in and of itself is a gender neutral term. Both men and women and people of multiple genders can identify as being feminist, right? It's not an exclusive term.
I hate to say this name because it's controversial, but like Justin Baldoni is a very big feminist. And
there's a lot going on right now with that.
And like is built his platform on feminism, which is very, very cool. Actually, Alicia Keys, she said it like perfectly at the Grammys when she was talking about DEI equality and it's for everyone. And I was like, yeah, listen to her. Like exactly what she said. Like that's what it should be about. I don't know how it got so twisted. It feels like it got twisted somewhere along the lines. And that's not great because it's blurred what it was. Same with pronouns. Like that got twisted into some weird, I don't know, like that shouldn't have gotten twisted in the wrong direction, yet it did. So like, how do you untwist it? I don't know.
Yeah. Speaking from your own personal experience, do you think you've had an experience where a DEI policy or, you know, an inclusion policy or something has either benefited you or, you know, been there and created a situation that made something uncomfortable? Like, have you had personal experiences in your career around a challenge with that?
I think that programs that, especially in the corporate America line of work I've been involved in, have always helped me either be recognized or noticed, not just because I'm a girl, but because some of these programs, especially like Delta Airlines, like they build their DEI programs also around like your ethnicity and your background. And so, you know, like being European and speaking French and Italian fluently and being able to highlight that really helped me when I was there in global sales. So I could help translate or I could help lead events in other languages. And that was pretty cool. Like I haven't seen negative effects from these programs. So I guess that's what I'd be interested in. Like, how have these programs negatively affected things? Because I haven't seen the negative. I don't know. It's just weird.
You know, kind of switching into the challenges that you face as a woman, what kind of challenges have you faced in, you know, the event industry and some of the other areas that you've worked?
Yeah, I mean, the event industry and trade show industry is very tough because it's very male dominated. So definitely going in as a woman, you have to know your stuff and you have to be very assertive and willing to bend a little, but have a backbone because, I mean, these industries are like trade shows, trade show unions, all the convention centers, they are predominantly run by men. It's very tough. But I think once you get in, if you can get their respect and They can understand that you're bringing a value to the table, no matter what age you are, shape, color, size. That helps. That's helped me. And also, I mean, it's a lot of probably similar to supply chain, same old white dudes, but like, I think they're willing to kind of accept the changing tide of the world and ladder and, okay, I'll deal with some blonde girl from California. Like, it'll be fine. Like, she probably knows her stuff, you know. But yeah, it's tricky. You have to be brave. That's for sure. You have to
What
be
are
brave.
some of the tools that you use? Like you said, you know, be brave, but like what are some of the ways that you earn that respect that you mentioned?
I think for me, it's been with my education, knowing all the union rules, knowing, you know, I do all the physical installs for pretty much all the shows I work on. I know how to run a forklift. I know how to rig. I understand. So having the knowledge really, really helps because that shows that you understand what's going on and being able to pipe up if something's going wrong in a convention center and tell one of these old white dudes, like, I wouldn't do it that way because it's not going to work. And here's why. It helps kind of get them to understand, you know what you're doing, you know what you're talking about.
Do you think the burden for women to be that knowledgeable is higher than it is for other people?
100%.
Yeah.
100%. I would like to say no to that, but unfortunately, yeah. And having gone to college and having as much education and certifications as you can and being able to back why you know what you know and how you know what you know, 100%.
Yeah, I think there's a stat out there that I read that said something like when women look at job postings, they only apply if they're like 100% qualified for everything in the job posting. And that men will kind of apply if they're 50% qualified, right? So there's like this level of like confidence gap, I guess, between men and women, and we feel like we have to be, but there's almost some of, from what you're saying, there's almost some of that coming back saying, yeah, because the expectation is that women need to be 100% or 110%. And then you layer, you know, the intersectionality of race and ethnicity on top of that. And you have to have people who are even, you know, even higher qualified in order to fit the same type of expectation. It's like a margin of the failure tolerance is higher for men in a lot of these industries than it is for women, right? Yeah.
Well said.
So how would you describe your leadership role? Like you've had a variety of different leadership positions throughout your career, but in, you know, putting up trade show booths and in offices and things. How would you describe your leadership style?
Try to stay happy and healthy and positive. And I always come from that. And I definitely think that's a very Disney way. And a lot of people don't like it. I will say at Delta Airlines, they did not like this quality. They tried to break me and they couldn't. And that, I think, really upset them because I was just like, no, I'm fine. Don't worry. If I'm crying, you're not going to see it. Don't worry. It's fine. I just try to be happy. I always try to lead from a place of love. I think that's like really important. And you're all in it together. You need to work together no matter who you are. But I've had people try to break me. I mean, I even worked on one team at Disney where I had a very high-strung female boss who did not like this personality approach of mine and really tried to change me. And I had to learn really early on while I was on her team for about 4.5 years. No, this is how I want to do it. I want to be happy. I want to lead this way. I don't want to lead from an alpha female place. I'm not an alpha female. I'm not a type A. And it was a big struggle, especially when you're young and people are trying to push you and mold you into what they think you should be, like having to fight back and be like, no, this is how I want to be. So I've always been this way and I think I'm going to keep going. I feel like I've been successful, but screaming and yelling is just not my way. I don't know. It's just not my way. It's not going to work.
Where do you think you got that fortitude? Because I mean, like so many people are like, I want to be happy or whatever, but then the easy thing or the easy way out is getting frustrated. Did you have a mentor or is this kind of Like, where do you get the fortitude to, especially at such a young age, you know, and the pressure that you have to conform to a specific style? Like, how do you have that fortitude?
I think I had a really good mentor. I know I had a really good mentor while I was at Disney. His name was Craig Smith. Shout out to him. He's now retired. He was there for like 900 years. I'm not kidding. He literally was. Like his whole 80-year career was Disney. But he was very much of that approach. And that's why he was so successful at Disney. His theory was you bleed from a place of love. I remember early on, he gave me a book called Love is the Killer App. I can't remember who wrote it, but it was fantastic. And it really helped me shape my whole leadership style journey. And I've just never changed. That's just been my way because I'm like, I like this. It feels like it fits my personality. Because anytime I tried the mean boss's way at Disney to be too aggressive it just didn't work for me. I don't come off that way. I think it's not believable.
Especially with you.
It's not. I'm always smiling and laughing. Like I can't put on that. It doesn't work. It just doesn't work. So yeah, I think you just have to learn what's your style and just be true to your style and how you feel throughout your whole career. Try not to change it because you've got to stay true to who you are no matter what you are, what crayon you are, what kind of glitter you are. Like you have to just believe you're doing it right. I mean, I would only drastically make a personality change if you really think something is wrong, but I don't think you should. Going
to stay true to yourself. There's, no matter what it is. Yeah. I think we each have our own kind of styles, right? But the whole leading with love thing, I think is so important, and that I think ties into empathy and understanding like where people are coming from. And not everybody comes from the same background. Not everybody has the same experiences, and things might be triggering to people that you don't realize, and if you lead with love, then you can lead with that understanding that, maybe something needs to be adjusted for that person or something.
Absolutely. And again, like so much of my industry it's so service driven. I mean, you really can't and shouldn't be an angry me, an event, marketing, trade show human. Like, it's just not great. People don't want to meet that when they're checking in or registering for an event. So you kind of have to think about that in line with how you behave. Because I just know anyone I've ever met, just my own self, going to check in for an event or a trade show, if they're not smiling and happy, it's kind of not a great experience for anyone involved. So, yeah.
How do you fuel that with a Red Bull and lots of lots of sugar?
Starbucks. Yes, Starbucks. And no is not an answer.
That's an interesting one because a lot of times we're taught that no is a full sentence, right?
Well,
but in your industry, it's a very different,
right. You have to say, okay, I'll figure out how to make that happen for you.
Yeah. What's been maybe like, I know you have a million stories about, one of the craziest things that have happened, but what's
I wrote a book,
craziest thing?
No one would believe if I wrote a book. They'd be like, it's lies. They'd fact check it and then they'd be like, wait, might be right.
What's been like the craziest thing you've been asked to do, and how did you solve it? How did you fix it?
Oh my gosh. Okay. I have a good one from Disney. So you have to start in fairy tale weddings when you get into special events at Disney. I think because they know it's going to be like the craziest part of your life, and it's going to be really challenging because a Disney bride is not a normal bride. So you're already on an uneven playing field. So I once had to chase an actual elephant, a real life breathing,
like Dumbo,
pooping elephant like Dumbo, on Disney property for a bride's wedding. And I think it was maybe just one of the craziest things in my life, because I was literally chasing an elephant, making sure he was not pooping all over Main Street during this woman's ceremony. She was getting married at night in Disney, so the park was closed. But still, that was pretty wild. I think I have another really good one. People love this story because they ask me whenever the power goes out at the Super Bowl or any big arena, if it's me. Michael Phelps swam on Main Street at Disney way back in the day before the Olympics, Summer Olympics. And I was tasked with building him a pool on Main Street to swim in, an Olympic-sized pool. So that was a challenge in and of itself because Disneyland is quite small and there's not a lot of square footage to do that. But I did it. But in the process of doing it, I messed up the power and the electricity, and I knocked the entire park off of an electric grid. And I literally thought I was going to get fired when this happened. I was 22 when this happened.
And you survived.
There are still stories about it. But I remember I threw my badge at my boss at the time. And I was like, well, it's been really fun. And they couldn't get the power back on. Like, I blew the power for this little chunk of Anaheim, California. And so when the Super Bowl lost power in New Orleans, not this time, a couple years back, I have friends who asked me if that was me because what I did at Disney. And I was like, no, I was not on that Super Bowl and that was not me. But now I check all of my power with an electrician because
probably good call.
You might do something wrong. Yeah, we turned on the pool and the pool lit up, but everything else, not good.
So after such a spectacular fail like that, how do you stay motivated to keep doing what you're doing? Because there's so many people that would have just been like, I've tried to get an elephant to stop from pooping. I blew out the power.
Yeah.
And you're what, 22 at that point?
22.
So many people would have just been like thrown in the cards and been like, okay, I'm going to go be a teacher somewhere or do something else with my life.
I'm going into
How did
retail.
You stay motivated?
I think I was determined to get it right. I was like, I'm going to get this right. I'm going to get this right. It might kill me, but I'm going to do it. I just have a lot of determination, and it's very hard for me to like say no and throw in the towel. But I was very close when I threw the badge because I thought I was going to get fired. I was like, this is it. But it's a teachable moment because I have done things differently ever since. I have done things differently. I mean, electricity is very complicated, and I'm not an electrician. So I was bound to mess it up a little bit.
I think that's such an important lesson, though, because like when you say like you've never repeated that same mistake again, like, there's so many moments, I think, in all of our careers where like we messed something up so royally and like never, ever repeated the same mistake ever again, or like figured out how to avoid it before it happened again. But that willingness to be able to like, take your determination and say, okay, I'm going to figure this out no matter what. I might blow out the entire power grid of Anaheim in the process, but I'm going to figure it out.
I'm so sorry. I mean, things happen. Things happen. You just have to make quick recoveries and move on, and teachable moments. Teachable moments. Don't let anyone else do it.
So kind of looking back at all the interesting things that you've done so far in your career, what do you wish you'd done anything differently so far, or what do you think?
I did think about, like, would things have been a little bit different for me? And I hate to say this, if I would not have chosen Disney, but I just felt like Disney and my personality were just very perfect for each other. But if I would have gone with Universal, or if I would have gone with, who else was after me? Turner, or like one of the other NBC, one of the other large production companies in LA, because they were all on the table when I was there. Would I have been laid off during the recession in 2009? That's playing a really weird game, because I really think I was led to go with Disney because I really loved Disney as a kid, really fit their culture perfectly with my personality. It might have been a lot harder, and I don't have any horror stories from having gone with Disney because they have a really good environment. And I also think I just kind of knew that. I was like, that feels like a good environment for a young woman in the industry I'm trying to go into. But yeah, I do wonder, like, if I would have gone to Miramax or Sony, or I don't know, like, would it have, and would it have been a little easier? I don't know. I have friends at all the places, but it makes you kind of wonder, or like, I'm curious, but I can't change it now.
You can't change it now. It makes me question, it makes me kind of think about, like, With Disney's environment, though, do you think that that kind of focus on empowering women gave you the freedom and the confidence to kind of experiment and be willing to try things differently?
I think so. I don't know if I would have gotten that in the other environments. And the other environments and competitors are very male dominated. And like, I just don't know if I didn't choose those opportunities because of that, or if I was just like, no, it's Disney. Disney is going to be a good solid 20 years of my life and beyond. Like, I don't know, because I still do stuff with Disney. So, I mean, it has worked out well for me, but I can't get away from the mouse now. I mean, I'm like shackled to him.
I guess so.
So, that's fine. I'll get a tattoo for him somewhere on my body. I don't know. But yeah, no, I don't know. I do think I worry about that for sure. Like their environments, I know how competitive NBC is. I got a lot of friends there. Like it's hard. It's hard to find companies that are on Disney's level. Like I always say Delta Airlines is like the Disney of like the flight industry because they have modeled the company very similar in structure. Same with Netflix. And they also have a lot of female leaders and female empowerment groups and like leadership courses, and there's something to be said for that. Like, so I know that played a big part in it for me too, because Walt Disney was very inclusive of women and trying to promote them and raise them up throughout the entire structure of what he created with Disney and now what is there with Pixar. And yeah,
representation definitely matters, like being able to see yourself in the different levels of the company, but also that shows that it's possible, but not just possible, but encouraged, especially if you have like employee advocacy groups and training and things like that. That's such a critical piece, not just to focus on the women, but also like the entire group as a whole. Yeah.
Right.
Kind of circles back to our DEI is for everyone, when we started our conversation.
Right. Like at Disney, I know they were, one of the first companies to start the paternal leave for men to have when they're having babies. And that's it. That was a huge step out when they came out with that program. And a lot of corporations followed after them because they were like, wow, okay, like we should get on that track.
If Disney's doing it, maybe we should do it too.
Right. DEI is for everyone. Like, again, yeah. So, yeah, it's crazy.
That's awesome. If you could give like a piece of advice, like what's the best piece of advice you've either gotten or that you would give to somebody?
I think you'll love this. It's not personal, it's business.
Why?
It was told to me when I was laid off from Disney, and I sat on that for years, traveled the world with it, imprinted in my brain. Probably would have gotten a tattoo of it. And I just think that's a big thing to always remember, because things happen and they're not personal, but we take them personal because we're human beings and we feel and we're emotional. But sometimes decisions are purely made from business, and it's part of adulthood and it sucks, but you have to accept it and move on. And I don't know, that whole phrase has helped me shape my entire life. So I thank my friend in HR for saying that to me at Disney, because I really feel that now at 40, that it is not personal, it is business. And the separation of that is just really important, because things happen and you'll beat yourself up. And I know I beat myself up over my layoff and my team's layoff, and it had nothing to do with me. It was so much bigger. That recession, the recession we're in right now, the one we're going to, like, it's not personal. It is life. You can't stop it. It's happened, and it's just, how do you accept it and move on and realize it's not you?
That is such a great piece of advice. I think kind of ties into your being you, where it's like, be unapologetically you, whether that's a purple glitter crayon or what. And then when things happen in business, it's not you, it's sometimes the business. And keep yourself protected and keep yourself intact throughout the process. Stick to your ethics and your morals and your values, and you can keep yourself kind of on your own path, right? Yeah. Well, Bern, this has been such a fun conversation. I always love talking to you, and I know there's so many more stories that include so many more fun things and people. So we'll have to have you back for a part 2. But thank you so much for being on the Feminist Exec and talking about all things leadership, Disney, mistakes, challenges, and career advice, and just being a woman in a male-dominated industry, you know.
It's true.
And all that comes with it. So thank you very much, Bern. That's a wrap on this episode of the Feminist Exec. Thank you for tuning in and being part of the conversation. If you enjoyed today's episode, be sure to subscribe, leave a review, and share it with someone who needs to hear it. A special thank you to our composer, Peter Legault, for the original music. I'm KP, and this is the Feminist Exec. Until next time, keep leading, keep rising, and keep forging your future.